Hey guys, thanks for joining me for this 51st episode in Season 2 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. Special guests for this episode include the legendary Ruta Lee, got a brand new book, Consider Your Ass Kissed. We'll also visit with actor and voiceover artist Peter Coyote, has a new movie, The Girl Who Believed in Miracles. Also, we'll talk some upcoming voice acting gigs that he's got with documentary director Ken Burns. We'll also visit with explorer Vanessa O'Brien. Got a brand new book we'll be talking about, To the Greatest Heights. Of course, if you would, please take the time to subscribe, drop a like, comment, leave some feedback, and, of course, share with your friends. Now, you know the old cliche, never go to bed angry? Well, it's not just something your great aunt once embroidered on a pillow. It turns out there's some actual scientific evidence behind it. A new study at Oregon State University found it really is bad for you to go to bed angry. The researchers found that when couples talked out their arguments and both felt better before they went to sleep, they'd have a much less stressful day the next day because the stress adds up and carries over. And they weren't just better the next day. Their overall well-being was better than other couples who went to bed without working through their fights. We've got an icon going to talk about memoir, Consider Your Ass Kissed. Ruta Lee on the line with us today. And Ruta, first off, thank you so much for your time.
I thank you for your time, and I do want you to consider your ass kissed. Your wonderful listeners in Altus. Thank you.
And Ruta, tell us, how hard was it to sit down and put together this memoir, or was it once the ball got rolling, you were having a hard time slowing it down?
Sweetheart, it was the biggest pain in the place I want kissed to try and get it done, because I simply am not a good person about sitting down and writing. Boy, do I admire the people who do it for a living. I just don't know how anybody does. You know how it got done? A friend of mine from next door, Texas, Barry Rogers, who's a PR maven there, said, Ruta, you tell such great stories whenever you come on air with us or do a television show, whatever. You really should write all these down. And I only talked about it for about 10 years, I'd say. And finally he said, here's what I'm going to do. You're not going to do it otherwise. I'm going to come out and sit down and record. And we'll just talk over the weekend and I'll record everything that you say. Well, he did. And then he transcribed. And then it came out that he recorded every burp, every dog bark, every excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom now. That kind of thing. And so there was a lot of editing to do. And that's the most painful part of writing is editing, because one story leads to another, to another, to another. And where to begin and where to end and where to cut it off. It's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater all the time. So I admire writers. Let's just put it that way. And yet you're right about once you get rolling, you sort of say, wow, I didn't talk about that. That'll go in the next book, So hopefully there will be a next book. Hopefully we'll be able to publicize this one enough to get it rolling. And I thank you so very much for sharing your listeners with me today.
And Ruta, what were maybe some of the light bulb moments as you were going through and recollecting? Were there any that really stick out that you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one?
Well, the one that sticks out for me that I think deserves more than the chapter that I've given it, because I've tried to keep this kind of lighthearted and easy and fun, introducing people to some of the great stars and how I worked with them, was the chapter on calling Khrushchev, getting slightly sloshed when I got a letter from my grandmother, who had been deported to Siberia along with my grandfather, whose legs were frozen on the cattle train that they were being deported on. And when they took off his boots at one of the stops, the flesh came out with them. Gangrene had set in. 12 years in Siberia. And I got word that they had returned to Lithuania, which is my family's place of origin, Lithuania. I got word that she was dying, and so I was very distressed. And I went out with friends that night And the more wine they poured, the more logical it became that I should do the impossible and just pick up the damn phone and call Khrushchev. And I did. And you can imagine that phone call. But thank God, Cameron, in those days, we had person-to-person calling, where you paid twice as much for the call, but you didn't pay for it unless you got your party. And I made a person-to-person call to Nikita Khrushchev, the Kremlin, USSR, Moscow, USSR. And the operator said, "How do you spell Khrushchev?" I thought, oh, that miserable bitch. What? But anyway, long story short, I didn't speak to Khrushchev, but I spoke to his interpreter after maybe 8 hours of back and forth calling, And I got permission to come to Lithuania, which was one of the satellite countries that nobody got into unless you were a big official member of the party.
Right.
And I took my mother and father, and they were allowed to come. It was just a miraculous thing. And then I got permission to bring my darling grandmother home to the United States. And let me just tell you, Cameron, when I brought her home to the U.S. and she got off the plane, they didn't have jetways then. You walk down onto the tarmac.
Right. She
dropped to her knees on the ground and kissed the tarmac and said, "Hello, America." You can imagine what a moment that is. And it brings me to tears whenever I think of it. And I think we need more people like that realize how blessed we are to be in America and to be Americans.
And obviously you talk over the spans of your career, and I know we lost one of everybody's favorites, I think, Alex Trebeck, and I know you had an opportunity to work alongside of him. And what kind of effect did Alex have on you?
Oh, well, Alex happened to be one of my best buddies in the world. And he was also one of the funniest human beings I've ever known. He was not a storyteller, but he was a punctuator. He would come up with a funny line in the middle of nowhere that would keep everybody rolling. He was just wonderful. And Alex is on the back cover of my book, and he is on the inside too. And I'm very proud to say, Cameron, that he did the foreword to my book.
Oh, wow.
So you know that he was a good friend, and he did that just a few weeks before he went to meet his maker, and I was with him probably about 5 days before he died. And wow, what a fabulous, and I there is sadness in my heart, but there is also the great joy of having known him, and I think the same way about my darling husband. I had 46 years with him. I lost him, then I lost Alex, and I said, "Hey, Lord, how much more do you want to give me in 1 year?" But I think of everybody with a smile and a laugh because they brought so much color and laughter into my life. And like I said, it's my favorite pastime, laughter.
There you go. And again, Ruta, I want to make sure and let our listeners know where to find more information about the book and everything else you've got going on as well.
Oh, how lovely of you. Well, the book, thank God, will not be an expensive book. It's under $30. And as I'm wont to say, hell, 2 cups of coffee at Starbucks is that, and it will be available at Barnes and Noble. I, of course, want everybody to go to their local bookstore and support it during this whole COVID nonsense. And it's also going to be available on Amazon. And so I hope to be spending time in everybody's bedroom, a bathroom, living room, I don't care, wherever you invited me, on your television screen or on your radio. You can also take the book, and I'm hoping that everybody will enjoy it. And all I can do is say, I feel very, very blessed to have been with you today, Cameron, and with your audience. And thank you. And may God continue to bless America is my biggest hope.
That's right. Well, Ruta, it has truly been an honor and a privilege to visit with you this morning. Hope you have a great week and looking forward to spending more time in the book myself.
Thank you very, very much, Cameron. Much love to everybody.
Now, I feel bad for the artist here, but they were almost asking for it when they chose this as their medium. Cops in Canada are looking for a guy who walked into an art museum in Vancouver, British Columbia, and vandalized a piece of artwork made of bubble wrap by popping the bubbles. Now, it happened last month, but they just released his photo and they're hoping someone might recognize him. Now, the artwork he vandalized is called Delta Trim. It's about 1.5 feet tall and 21 feet wide. It's made entirely of bubble wrap, reflective tape, zip ties, Velcro, and moose hides. And there is also a photo you can check out online. Now, the guy who vandalized it looks to be in his early 20s, and he recorded a video of himself doing it. Now, it's not clear how many bubbles he popped, but officials say he caused about $6,000 in damage. How do you say you may now kiss the bride in Wookiee? Well, a 27-year-old guy just posted on Reddit about an issue he's having with his 26-year-old fiancée. They got engaged on Valentine's Day, and it turns out they have very different visions of their wedding. She wants something, quote, formal and glamorous. He wants a Star Wars theme. Like, he wants to go all out. He's talking hiring stormtroopers to dance, groomsmen in Jedi robes, and using Star Wars music for the first dance. But his fiancée isn't even into Star Wars. Quote, she doesn't want anything Star Wars at our wedding at all. I suggested that we could plan half the wedding, like she handles the ceremony and I plan the reception. She said no to that too. But the guy is sticking with it. He says, quote, this is my wedding too, and I should get to decide at least half the day. We share finances, so I'm paying enough to get a say too. Pretty much every single person who's commented on Reddit has taken his fiancée's side. You know him from the small and big screen, even behind the screen as a voice actor. Peter Coyote on the line with us. And first off, Peter, I appreciate you taking some time.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this little film, and I really appreciate your supporting it.
Yeah, now tell us a little bit about the new movie, The Girl Who Believed in Miracles. I watched the trailer and looking forward to sitting down and watching the film itself, but especially in the times we live in, Peter, I mean, this is it's got a great message out there.
Well, you know, this is a really sweet movie that doesn't put in the small of your back. I'm a Zen Buddhist priest, and I was completely comfortable making this Christian film. The kids were great. Little Sarah Hopkins, who's the star. I don't want to tell you exactly what the miracle is, but it's an act of faith. It's an act of miracle. And I play her kind of cranky old grandfather who could be described as an agnostic at best, who is turned around by what happens to his granddaughter.
And the cast of the film, obviously, we know Mira Sorvino, we know Kevin Sorbo, and yourself, and like you mentioned, Austin Johnson playing the role as well. How impressed were you by her playing as well?
Listen, all the kids. I became friends. I sent Tommy Rose, who played Cindy Kramer, to meet my agents in L.A., and the kids were just aghast. I learned more kind of strange hand games and kid stuff games from these guys that made the time just fly by.
Peter, in the times that we've lived in, obviously, unlike anything we've seen before, and how much different does it look for a new movie coming out than any you've seen before?
Well, I mean, you know, I had feared that this film was kind of too nice and too middle of the road because I hadn't seen it. And all of a sudden, here it is opening 2 days before Easter on April 2nd. It's just perfect providential timing. And, you know, the producer is a guy named Larry Jaffe. He's 98 years old. This is his first movie. I'm so glad he got to live to see it come out.
98 years young, that is, and making it through 2020. I mean, how excited are you to be able to let him see this for the first time out?
Well, it's just wonderful. You know, they say everything starts at the top. And the director, Rich Carell, was a delight to work with. I met Larry one day, I believe, on the set. I don't remember how many days he was there. But it was just such a good-hearted, everybody had a good time. Mira was an old friend. And I'm just delighted to see it come out.
Like you mentioned, the messaging of it, even being a Buddhist priest to be able to play in a Christian film, the message and the way folks need to hear a little hope in a movie as well.
Little hope, little faith. You know, I mean, even like little faith in our doctors, let's say. I mean, come on, folks. So I think it's coming out at a good time.
That's right. And again, it is in theaters coming up April 2nd. That is Friday, right before Easter. Looking forward to that. And Peter, what else are you looking forward to in the new year?
But let me first give the website, which is thegirlwhobelievedinmiracles.com. Then I've got a Ken Burns show April 5th on Ernest Hemingway. And then later in May this year, we're doing one on Benjamin Franklin. And by and large, I'm not doing movies much anymore. I'm tired of leaving home and traveling.
So you've probably appreciated the remote recording, haven't you?
Yeah, and when it's really I've got a pretty good mic and amp in my house, but when it has to be high end, there's a really good little studio 5 minutes from my house.
That's cool. Well, Peter, I look forward to checking those out as well. And again, The Girl Who Believes in Miracles. Be sure and check that out. And Peter, hope you have a great rest of your week, and we can catch up again real soon, sir.
Cameron.
Now, these two guys are both in jail because they're too good at being waiters. Jacob Jordan and Robert Lee are both waiters who do the graveyard shift at a Denny's in Bryant, Arkansas, and last week they both had a table waiting on a plate of chicken tenders. Now the cooks put out one plate, and Jacob and Robert got into a fight over whose table was going to get it. Eventually started throwing punches, and then the cops were called. Well, when the cops ran their IDs, they found out that both guys had lots of outstanding warrants. So both guys were arrested for battery, and well, now they'll be facing their other charges as well. Our final guest, explorer Vanessa O'Brien. She's not going to tell you this, but Explorer of the Year from 2018. We've got a book to talk about. Excited to talk with Vanessa O'Brien on the line with us. And first off, Vanessa, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Now, Vanessa, when did the idea of exploration? I mean, were you one of those that was always out digging up in the backyard and wanting to climb everything that you had as a youngster?
You know, not really. I don't know if that was the perfect setup. I was just a suburban kid, totally next door, suburbs, probably of an age, though, before video games and all that technology. So probably played outdoors a little bit more than the kids do today. But, what's great about the book is when I look back, it's, there was no climbing necessarily forecast in my life whatsoever. And as I take on the pursuit of Everest, which really occurs to me at the height of the global recession, when I'm in financial services and I'm looking for something different to do, the first chapter is the pursuit of Everest, and I have no climbing experience whatsoever. So when I'm doing this, I'm taking the reader along with me and just Googling Everest. Where is it? How high is it? How do I learn how to climb? I mean, I know nothing about climbing, but I don't. What's interesting is because I'm in business, I don't look at climbing as, oh no, I can't do it. I look at it as a skill, and a skill can be taught and therefore learned. So that's what I find fascinating is the thing that stops most people I'm looking at as saying, well, wait a minute, it's just a skill. Why can't I go and learn it? What I need to know is if I'm any good at it and if I like it, which is a different mindset.
Now, what were the biggest mental challenges leading up to the first one, going even to Everest in the first place?
So really, I think what was finding out how to climb. So mentally, I had to say, okay, here I am in a city. At the time, I was in Hong Kong, and saying, all right, I'll have to figure out how to learn how to climb. If I like it, that's a mental shift. But if you're walking, I see people walking around the city every day. They walk around rivers. They walk around parks. The point is, sometimes we have to get out of our house and walk around wherever we can. If it's a park, a city, if you have a river running through your city, wherever it is, and get outdoors. So if you're mildly fit in any way and just going for a walk, that's really what it starts. climbing mountains is really, the first part of it, the first third of it is just hiking. So a big part of a mountaineer's life is hiking. And so you don't really have to climb or want to climb or even want to climb a flight of stairs to understand what this book is about. It's really about doing something different and being motivated to step outside your comfort zone.
And Vanessa, for you to get the feedback from the readers and others that you've inspired, I mean, how does that motivate you to do even more, maybe step a little bit more out of your comfort zone again?
Yeah, so I think over time, I've been doing this now for 10 years. You can't close your eyes, right? So I have seen climate change, right? I can't not see it. So what I've started to do, maybe in the last 5 years, is start to become more of a citizen of science. And really, every single person can do this these days because there's apps on your phone. But you can start to take pictures. You can start to record stuff. You can, use your eyes through photography. You can, I've used myself as experiments. I've gone and taken samples of stuff. But now I feel much more compelled to give back and use. If I'm going somewhere that's hard to get to, then I want to take samples, say, of glaciers and bring them back so that we can see if there's any contamination. From fallout of, like Fukushima or some of these events, that will melt in the glaciers and end up in the irrigation systems or things like that. So you end up becoming more wise to how the world works and wanting to participate in it in a broader sense.
Where do you see the most impact that you've learned from your exploration and, like you said, from your testing and things like that in your day-to-day life?
The biggest impact... It's funny. It's hard to say. That the science can take you only so far. I think, and part of the reason for the book is actually the book came about mostly from people that I talked to, because I would give a talk and people would say, "Well, you can't make this stuff up. Like Hollywood couldn't make this stuff up. Some of the things that happen to you on expedition, the people that you're with, the stories that occurred, that happen." And they all would say, like, well, when is the book coming out? And the book is really, probably going to be the biggest impact, because I think it has the biggest ability to potentially help change people's way of thinking about their ability to do things that they can't do, because it allows you to think of ways in, stepping. If you take a step forward, you have a data point and you know whether you like something or you don't like something. You can always go back because the skills, knowledge, and experience you have acquired are always yours. So it gives you confidence to do stuff that you may not know that you have. And, there's just... The book doesn't preach. It uses humor, and it's mountaineering is a metaphor and all that stuff, but there's hidden stuff in there.
And again, that book we were talking about, To the Greatest Heights, it is available tomorrow. And Explorer Vanessa O'Brien, I want to make sure and let our listeners know where they can keep up with everything you've got going social media-wise as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time this morning.
Well, thanks again for joining me for this 51st episode in Season 2 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. If you ever have a comment, question, or anything else you'd like to know, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at GQ with Cam. If you'd like to help out in the funding for this podcast, head on over to the shop, gqwithcam.com/shop. And if you have a special guest idea, feel free to email me, gqwithcam@gmail.com. Thanks again to Brandon Allen for coming up with our theme music. We're going to let him play us out. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday evening.